So let's start off with the first stock that you could consider, and this is one that I talk about obviously, not often, often is the word I'm trying to get out, often on a hot stocks short portfolio, and that is Johnson & Johnson. Right, J&J, one of the world's largest healthcare companies, of course. It's got divisions, 3 of them. One is Pharmaceuticals. I'm going to go into that in detail today. The second is medical devices. That's the business Synthesis that it bought. That's joints, hips, knees, replacements, that kind of thing. We're not going to talk in detail about that, but it is a big, like 35% contributor to Johnson & Johnson. And then the third part of Johnson & Johnson is, of course, consumer healthcare products. Also, not going to talk about those, but that's things like Band-Aids, AccuView, which is lenses, a whole range of skin care creams, hair treatments, stuff that you rub on your baby's bottom, all that kind of stuff. Again, not talking about that. We're going to talk specifically about the pharma portfolio today. Market capitalization, let's point that out, which we always do, $290 billion. So that's right up there at the top end of the global market cap tables. Remember, that's about half the size of Apple, but it's big enough to be within probably the top 50 to 60 companies on the globe. $290 billion, that'll well get you. Price to earnings ratio, 17.4, dividend yield of 3%. Let's start off by looking at the share price chart, because as you know, we do that here on Hot Stocks. That tells its own story. 5-year chart there, you can see it's moved up well within 2012 and 2013 and 2014, to be fair. Since then, drifted a little bit sideways, not quite cracking it and hovering at about the $100 a share mark. Now, we talk about Johnson & Johnson a lot because it is an easy one-stop entry point into global healthcare, pharma, and private medical spending. And that's obviously because it has those 3 major divisions. Within its pharma division, though, it is a very big player. It bought in some of the IP, and this is quite typical in the big cap pharma space. Quite a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on. So companies have enormous balance sheets. Johnson & Johnson is one of the few corporates that still has a AAA credit rating. It's increased its dividend every year within living memory. So it has enormous access to capital if it wants to. So they can swoop and buy. For example, they bought Janssen Pharmaceuticals some years back, and in the mix acquired a whole bunch of drugs which came along. So what are the kind of things they have in their portfolio? Well, the biggest is a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to take it from my paperwork here. The biggest is Concerta. Okay, so that's a drug which people will be familiar with. It's for attention deficit disorder. Huge seller around the world. It's like Ritalin, just it acts a little bit slower. It's extremely widely used amongst kids that can't concentrate on their maths homework. Xarelto, which is a drug which is a world leader in the blood clotting environment. That's what you take in a post-operative situation in order to avoid a situation where you are going to get problems associated with rejection of organs that have been transplanted or any kind of internal surgery has been done. Remicade, which is a drug which is used for Crohn's disease. Risperdal, which is for bipolar disorder. A lot of people with that. And then something called Zytiga, which is a drug-based replacement instead of surgery for prostate cancer. So you're getting a sense these are big blockbuster drugs that have got lots and lots of money being associated with them. They're paid for by people's medical aid. In many cases, they are chronic drug conditions. So you're going to be on Concerta, you're going to be on that for your entire 10 years, from when you're 15 until you're 25, maybe even further. For Crohn's disease, Remicade, you're going to be on that one for ages. So this is the kind of stuff that you want to be invested in. I'm not going to go into that in any more detail other than to say it's probably underperformed in recent times because some of its competitors have been a bit more active with regard to mergers and acquisition activities. So I think the market is anticipating that J&J is either going to do a big purchase of another pharmaceutical company, or it's going to announce some kind of spin-off of a part of its business, possibly to break itself up. Certainly the investment community has been pressurizing CEO Alex Gorski to look at that kind of stuff for a while. So for me, it's a good entry point if you're working with limited funds in an offshore environment, and certainly part of the attraction of Johnson & Johnson is that attractive pharmaceutical portfolio.